when you do get into the game and you're encountering some delusional women, you got to set boundaries. You cannot be finessed. You cannot be a wallet and a bank account and something to be taken advantage of. So you have to know the game. I recommend being a volume shooter. I recommend getting out there and shooting as many shots as possible to get some experience, some real life experience. It's something when somebody can tell you in a podcast, this is what you do. But until you're in the game, it's different. Until you get past the ball in the corner and it's 3 seconds left, you don't know what that feels like. Welcome to the What They Won't Tell You podcast, episode 5. I am the Honorable Armani, joined by a few guests.
It's your boy, Mozzie.
Pedro, Petey.
So today, we got the Man Cave podcast. I want to have a candid conversation with the fellas. I think from the men's side, the men are saying that the women are unrealistic with their standards. The women have standards that are really high in terms of height, income, in terms of emotional intelligence, in terms of just what they expect from a man to do, provide in terms of effort. In terms of women, I've heard that, a lot of times women feel that the men that they're dealing with aren't qualified. They want a certain type of man. They want him to perform in a certain type of way. And men may call that delusional. They may call it, different words. But at the end of the day, there is a disconnect when you say that, 50% of men have stopped approaching women and 63% of men have decided to be single and 1 in 3 men are virgins or sexless in the last year. And you know what I mean? You hear these stats, you hear these statistics, you see it in dating, you see it in the streets, you hear it with your friends and family, and there's a problem on both sides. And so it's like, how do you bridge the gap? How do you get people to come together? And I want to start with, if you had little brothers and they just graduated college or they just got out of a relationship, like what's the advice that you give them to be the most qualified or to put themselves in the best position to find the woman that they want, right? So for me, I'll start with like fitness. This is a fitness page. I started with fitness. Looking the part is, the first step. To me, like perception is reality. So, if you look like a man, if you have a physique, people in general, not just women, but people will treat you a certain type of way. They know that there's discipline behind that. They know there's like hard work and effort behind that. Right. So fitness is the first part for me. Number 2, do you have like a high income skill that you're developing, that you're working toward? Do you have something that shows that in the next few years, you'll be able to get your own income and provide for a family? Like men, we're go-getters. We are providers by nature. We're hunters by nature. So that's something that women are looking for. They want to know that, like, in the future, are you a good investment? And then number 3, I would say, do you have social skills? Like, a lot of guys that do go and get those skills, they may become computer engineers or this, that, and the third, but it's like you don't know how to talk to women. You don't know how to interact with them. You don't know how to attract them and arouse them and seduce them. Like, these are skills that you have to acquire. So, like, if you're in college and you're broke, the best thing you can do, try to become popular, join organizations, join clubs, get your game up. Like, game is really just, like, understanding how to attract and arouse women. It's that process, it's the methods behind that. When we were broke, you know what I mean? Every guy on the panel was broke at a certain point, respectfully, and we still got girls because you knew the game. You knew how to maneuver. You knew how to finesse. So it's not just money, because you can get money and still just become a bank account and get finessed. So if you get the game, you get the social skills, you get these other attributes, when the money comes, it's just an enhancer. It's not the end-all, be-all. But I want to hear from y'all, like, what's your perspective on, like, you had a little brother, he's getting in the dating field. What do you tell him to be the best, optimal, choice for the woman that he wants?
All right, that one, I mean, Armani, you hit that on the nail, honestly. A lot of those points that you just mentioned, 100%. I would say, one, you got to know yourself, too, right? Coming out of college, you really don't know what you want. You don't even really know who you are. You just, went through how many years of school, like 12 plus another 4 years, so 16 years of school, and now you're out of college and you're just trying to figure out what's going on. So honestly, my advice to a little brother, it would not even be focused on women. Like you said, just focusing on yourself, understanding what you like, making sure you have a high income skill, making sure you're able to provide for yourself, let alone think about providing for somebody else, because eventually that's going to be the end goal when you find a woman, right? So Most importantly, yes, fitness, I say 100% look the part. You'll get a lot further if you are in shape. But honestly, social skills and just getting your finances in order, I think are like top two for me. Just because it makes life so much more easier when you don't have to worry about those aspects, and you can communicate with different people from different cultures. You're able to kind of be a chameleon at that point, and people resonate with you more, and you get those true life skills. Honestly, that's really where I'm coming from with it.
Right. What Kevin Samuels proved is that when he first came onto the scene and he started talking to men and he told them to tighten up, to go and get their money up and to go get their fitness and just become better men. And he did all this, and the men came back and said, well, I still can't find a woman that's worth it. I still can't find a woman that's doing what I want her to do. So when you're saying all these things and it's like, it sounds good. It's like, yeah, hey, if you go to school and you get a degree, there'll be a woman waiting for you that's nurturing, kind, and submissive. It's like, it sounds good, but in reality, what's happening is men aren't finding this. And we grew up in a generation where our parents, lived more of an average lifestyle, and they got to still have women that were more nurturing and feminine and more accommodating. And now we're not in that space anymore, but we grew up idolizing what we seen in our parents. So what do you say to the men that do the work and they still are running into women that aren't putting in that same effort? What do you do?
So, I mean, I guess the first point was more so if I was mentoring a young brother, right? So I think like that's sound advice that you would give to a younger brother or a younger mentee. The question about, what their results are, I think it's kind of hard for us to say we can't control the outcome. You can put in all this work, be a great man, and it still doesn't kind of net you what you're looking for. Maybe there isn't a lot of women who have done the work to, to reinvent themselves and make themselves better. So the pool for you is smaller. I mean, that's something that's out of your control. The best thing you can do is be the best version of you, because regardless, you become more of a productive member of society, right? You push the ball forward. You become more of an inspiration for other brothers in your same situation. So yeah, it might not net you what you're looking for, but at least you improved because of it, right? And hopefully, we set the tone and become the inspiration, because men are pulling themselves up and women are doing the same thing themselves. But it's kind of hard to do. I think women need to have this same talk on the other side so they can self-improve as well, so that they can attract a brother who's doing his thing, and that's it, because it's like you can't force it, you know what I mean? You can't force it, because you got to think about it. We're trying to do this for the long term, and so it has to be right from the start. The foundation has to be strong.
But I mean, on a tactical level, like this is your young brother. You're trying to give him the game. Like, this isn't just daffodils and daisies. You're trying to really break it down to him. This is when you take a girl on a date. This is where you take her to. This is how much you should be willing to spend. Like, these are the things you should do. And he's going out and he's spending money and he's not getting results.
Well, I mean,
what do you do?
Again, you have your standards, right? Yeah. Now, like, if it means, okay, maybe my discernment needs to tighten up a little bit, because if I'm spending money and I'm not getting some in the result, maybe I need to have different kind of conversations, change my approach. But if it's not working, then you have the bar of like, all right, well, I'm not going on a certain amount of dates. I'm not spending X amount of money if I'm going on dates. And then if she can't understand that, maybe she's not for you. Yeah. And you have to have that understanding yourself. Like, all right, well, if the girl I'm going on a date with is requiring me to spend $200-300, it's not the girl for me. And just and live with that and be cool and understand that, like, yeah, that might cut your chances and you might limit the pool of people you have. Okay, cool. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to stand on what I believe. And I don't believe it's worth that kind of financial amount. Okay. If a girl's not cool with you taking her to the coffee shop or on a picnic or something like that, maybe that's not the one for you, and be cool with that. And that's it, because at the end of the day, you can't control other people, right? And so if they don't want to do the work, it's just what that is. Yeah. And if you have to suck, or if you have to go longer without having a spouse, it's a part of the game.
Right, but part of that. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So my thoughts to that is like, my little mentor protege. It's like, what results are you looking for, right? Are you looking to have a one night? Or are you looking to have a long-term relationship? You're looking for something serious, right? And depending on that's how you approach a situation. But to your point, right, the example I usually use is,
make the assumption they're looking for a relationship.
Yeah, they're looking for a relationship, right? But just like the NFL draft, people go there, like talented people go there. You putting your best foot forward, and you may not get what you're looking for. Doesn't mean you may not have another opportunity or another time for that, right? It's just that person may just not be for you. You just got to keep on trying and keep on exploring to figure out which one's going to be the one for you.
But then you're gonna be in that endless cycle, right?
But that's success, though. Like, it doesn't come about the failures.
Yeah, you got to go through something.
And at the end of the day, if you are a constant grower, you learn from those, and you become a sharper and sharper individual because of that. Right. I mean, ultimately, you know, there will be some success down the road if you are sharpening your iron and becoming better each time. But at the end of the day, you can't force it because you end up, look at it, 57% of the relationships end the first marriages end in divorce. You know, like, there's a lot of people making bad choices because of maybe desperation or they just trying to force it, and then it ends bad anyway. Right. You know what I mean? So it's just like, at that point, do the work, right? And then wait for it, right?
But do the work. Yeah, do the work for yourself. That's like the first step of it, right? You did the work. We gave them the game, right? They're man. They're ready to date. And at that point, I mean, you know what I mean? So I'm ready to date. So I mean, at that point, it's just kind of like going through the cards, right? Like, you'll find it don't really matter if you spend.
You got to control the controllables, bro.
You got to control the controllables.
But you also have to have you also have to get that experience, whether it fails.
Yeah.
So you also got to put the work in after the fact, though, right? Because you're not going to find, like we just talked about, right? And then even what I mentioned on the first go around, like, you're not going to really find somebody who's all the way there that you're looking for, but you want to find those qualities and understand the mindset of the person that you're working with, and be like, all right, I could work with that. And then that's when the real work begins. And if they're willing to do that work with you and say, hey, all right, this is what I expect. You have your standards, they have their standards, and then you guys work together to kind of build that relationship.
So to Amani's point, I think the narrative that's trying to be set real quick is that, like, all these men do all this work, and maybe there's a lot of women that are really living in delusional land. So you're still not at the level, even if you do the work that they believe that you need to be at for them to deal with you. So now there's still a big landslide of options you have, like,
right. But if you're not at the level that she think you are, then she's not even the right one.
She's not the right one.
Right, but
what I'm saying is, what I hear from men is most of them aren't right? So my thing is this: you have to establish boundaries. Boundaries makes you a good man. It doesn't make you insecure. Having boundaries makes you a good man. If you know that you want to come into the dating field, you should not be getting finessed in the $300 and $400 first dates because. The majority of the male population cannot afford that. So I would recommend FaceTime the girl. FaceTime her, have a 30-minute conversation. Ask her some probing questions that will give you an insight into what type of woman this is before you commit to a date. If you believe that after that conversation she's ready for a date, okay, do something reasonable.
I mean, see, first of all, hey, hold on, wait, first of all, Money jumped over a lot of steps. Like, first of all, he jumped over a lot of steps.
I thought you already supposed to talk before you go.
First of all, it's like, how do you get to the FaceTime? That's the thing, because you're talking about.
From the swiping?
I'm just saying, like, set the scenario.
Okay, the scenario is, okay. What I would say first is you need to be a volume shooter. You need to be in places where you're shooting a lot of shots. You need to have the maximum probability of winning. So one, join clubs, organizations, join, you know what I mean?
Hey, like, run clubs, the new dating apps, they
Run clubs, the new dating apps. Join clubs, organizations, go to places, go out to, I wouldn't recommend bars and clubs, but if you have to, just to get your volume up, just to understand what it is to have game and how to maneuver, get that skill set.
Yeah.
Then from there, when you meet a woman, I'm talking in terms of vetting her, you don't just commit to the $400.
All right, so before we get to that point, Ro, let's just harp on the whole fact of how to communicate. And I think a lot of that is, a lot of people aren't really interesting. And I think one thing is, to get interesting is that you need to have hobbies, things that you do, right? And that's one thing. Like you said, join things, right? Join clubs, do activities, meet other people, become interesting, right? And therefore, you have things to talk about. 'Cause that's a problem I see a lot of guys have. Like, they don't know how to strike or hold conversations.
You have that personality.
Right. You have that personality.
Like,
personality means you're doing.
You can laugh a girl out her panties. To be honest, like, that's the thing. Like, I think. Because what I hear a lot of times, like, guys are like, yo, I'm an average guy. Like, I make $50,000 a year, $55,000 or whatever. Like, I'm not in a position where I'm going to get the $100K or $100K plus.
You could be
like,
funny, though.
What is my outlook on this? Well, you got to develop other skill sets. Have personality, have charisma, have charm, have game, have seduction, arouse. Like, have something else that goes along with making you an attractive candidate to a woman. It doesn't always have to be money, but you
It
gotta
doesn't.
have something. You can't just be sitting here complaining that women don't want to talk to you if you're not putting in work to make yourself attractive in some type of way.
It's easy things, right? Like being fit. You don't need a gym membership to do that,
Yeah.
right? Pull-ups and push-ups and the dumbbell if you got to do some walking and some jogging,
Yeah.
right? You build your physique. You don't got to do that. Get a couple books. They get them for free. Read. Bump up your noggin a little bit, and then you'll have a lot more things to talk about. Get into activities. Like you can just start to do little things that aren't really expensive.
So I also think some of these guys, like their criteria, what they look for, may be also unrealistic as well, right? And I think that may be a problem. Like you're saying
They want that bubble butt stripper that cook.
I mean, right, like you have an idea.
That's what it costs.
Right, exactly, right. You say, let's say, for instance, that guy who makes 65, right? But his ideal woman is this top class woman who's doing really, really well, and you may not meet her criteria. And you're saying, but this is what I'm going for. I deserve this as a person. Like I deserve this, but that may not align to you. And so you may have to not set yourself back, but take some time to figure out, okay, what's your baseline? What makes the most sense for you? What woman aligns to what I have, right? So that person may not be in your class of things, right? And that may not be the best person for you. You may need to find someone who aligns with your values, what you offer, what you bring to the table, who sees you as someone that they can continue to work on and build up. It's the 80-20 rule. Like you have 80% of what she has or what she's looking for, and then the rest you can build up, and the same for her. But if you have unrealistic expectations of the woman you're trying to date, because most of the time in the world, we look at the dating pool as physical attraction. Like usually we're physically attracted to somebody, so that person you're truly physically attracted to may not be within your wheelhouse, and someone else may be. Right?
And that means you just got more work to do.
You got more work. You got more work to do at the end of the
Because
day,
you're
right?
not ready.
We just have to be realistic. So what we're seeing here is that for those cases, is that people have these unrealistic expectations with no baseline or foundation to what they really want, and that's some of the problem for them.
Okay.
I mean, no one's gonna admit they ugly though. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Nah, it's not even saying that you ugly. It's just saying like you have to be real with yourself. Like if you're not up to par in certain areas, I'm not gonna say like you don't have the confidence, but it's like you have to know. You just have to know what you have, what you're bringing to the table, and you have to know there's certain people out there that may not like what you have. That's just life. This is how it works, right? But hey, if you're one of that lucky guys or lucky girls that can get that, by all means, bless you. Continue.
So a lot of the dating, the podcast guys, they say like, a man should get 50 bodies before he settles down,
crazy.
right?
oh,
No,
man, got a
because
number for it.
Because it's the experience. It's like you have to run the game end to end to know game, to know that it's a proven thing that you can do. So do y'all recommend that when you're young, when you're vibrant, you're trying to figure the game out, do you recommend that a man should just run the streets? Because there's two sides of the story. I see guys that don't run the streets when they're young and they get older and then they want to run the streets then. That's not the time to run the streets.
No,
That's
it's
not
important to get that out the way early on, honestly, if you get more experience too. So
Yeah, you don't have to rack up that
Yeah,
many.
you don't have to rack up that many, but experience.
But even still, right? Like, I think there's other ways to gain experience in dating, just other than collecting bodies,
Correct.
if you want to call it. But like, real talk. Like, I think there's other ways to gain experience in dating. But if you need that experience, by all means, like, but how many people are you actually dating? And then also, let's take it back. Define experience. Like, what experience? Like,
So-
you can have one relationship and gain a lot of experience compared to dating multiple people, and then you're actually a lot more confused than you were before.
What I say is guys trips build character. Here's what it is that when you're interacting with women and you have a short time frame of having to get them attracted and aroused, there's a certain skill set that you develop in order to figure that out. And so what a lot of the guys in the dating sphere will say is like, you need to develop those skills, and the only way to do it is to practice. The only way to do it is to go on the court and shoot 1,000 shots.
But what's the end goal? Is it to, be with a whole bunch of girls, or are you trying to find a relationship? Like, what are we advising?
The idea is that you will always have to game your own girl. Even if you get a girl, even if you get your girl, you got her because you had the game. You gamed her the same way you gamed all the other girls. That's the idea. What do y'all think about that? I'm pushing y'all today. I mean, let's talk.
So I guess you have to define what the game is, right? Like, you use, all right, so let's say I'm gonna try to come up with these two analogies. Like you have a guy who's been in the streets, who knows his game, right? And he got his girl, his bad girl, because he had game, he had swag, he had drip with Riz, whatever you want to call it. He had all that, so he got her. Then you have the other guy who built certain skill sets, and his type of girl does not even equal to this other guy's type of girl, if I'm making sense here. And it's like the value that this guy sees here is different from this person here. And I think I'm trying to make sense of that, but it's like I think there's a different value set that each man has to determine the value of the woman that they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean to top on your point, I think it's based on what's the outcome you want, what's the kind of girl that you want, right? Like if you need to go run the streets, slam 50 joints to build the skill set, you're attracting a certain type of girl. You know, maybe the girl that has a strong affinity for bad boys, or that kind of guy that knows how to spit game and talk her ear off like Chris Brown or something like that, right? You know, but then there's other girls who don't care for that kind of guy. And they want that guy that maybe doesn't have all that experience, right? Like there's the two sides of the streets, and I think it all boils down to what kind of person do you want to be, right? Are you looking to attract those kind of women, or are you looking to attract maybe a more wholesome?
I don't think there's a difference. To be honest,
You don't think so?
I don't see. From my experience from being in church, from being around what would be ideally, you would say, the most wholesome women, those women that grow up around those guys that are clean cut, that are wholesome, that are good old boys, they want the opposite. They still want the bad boy experience. They're still curious about, like, what is the other side like? Like, what is it like to have a guy that's assertive and dominant? And it's cool to be the guy that's nice. It's cool
It's
when
funny,
you're
yeah.
growing up, because it's like society tells you be a nice guy. But at the end of the day, it's like at a certain point you start to realize, well, how come the nice girl is dealing with the guy that's an asshole? Like, what happens with that? And then
Yeah.
you start to get curious and you look behind the curtain and you see that it may not be everything that you want. So
No, I mean,
why
no,
it's good to get that
no,
experience out the
it's
way,
real.
really.
It's real. Like, I think it's still, I don't know the ratio of girls that kind of are into that. But I do remember, like, growing up, you know, we come from Baltimore, and when I came out to, like, PG County and all that, or even in Baltimore County, you'll see people who lived in really nice areas, but they would want to deal with hood dudes, and I'm just like, I never really understood that. Like, those dudes are menaces, you know, drug dealers. They got weapons. They do all these things, and that's attractive to you.
yeah.
I never really understood it. I just was like, all right, well, I chalked it up to, you know, women are attracted to the bad boys, quote unquote. You know, that was a narrative at some point. And, you know, he got a little danger to him. And sometimes I think they associate that edge or that danger with he can protect me. If something really went down, I know he's dangerous and people know he's dangerous. So I feel good under that, you know, and maybe that's part of it. But there's also a lot of girls that don't really care for that. You know, so it all depends on what you're trying to attract. You know, if majority of girls like that bad guy, then that's just, if you want more options, that's what you got to do. And if maybe a small subset of girls are looking for that dude with no experience, hey, you know, that's a lane for you. But I think there's lanes for it. I just don't know where the majority sits at.
So closing thoughts. I want to wrap this topic up.
Yeah,
We can
yeah,
move
yeah.
on to other topics. Closing thoughts on advice you would give to your young brother just getting in the game. He just got out of a relationship. He ready to get in the field. What do you say? Like, give me the closing thoughts.
If he just got a relationship, take your time, big dog. You know what I mean? Go back and figure out who you are and what you're trying to do. Take your time. You know, you don't cover anything up with a Band-Aid. You really heal from it. So if you've been out there for a minute, you done your healing and you're ready to really shoot it, you know what I mean? Like, be intentional. Understand why you're out there. If you're just looking for cheeks, you know, move with intention. You know, move with that intent. If you're not and you're looking for something long lasting, you know, be intentional with it. You know, be purposeful. Be purposeful in all your movements if you can. You know, and that's what I would share.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, just be intentional and purposeful about how you move, especially when you get out. But like you said, the healing part is essential, right? You don't know what kind of damage you had from your relationship, how it may affect the next person. So you want to make sure you're prepared for that, and you know, write down how you can improve in those areas where it could have been wrong. Because I'm sure both sides had some play in why you stopped talking to that person. So definitely work on that. Take that feedback and learn from it, grow from it, and then make sure you go go to the next relationship whenever you're ready. And just be purposeful about your next intentions.
No, 100%. I agree. Take time to get to know yourself, get to know why it didn't work, get to know what you want in the future. I mean, at the end of the day, you still got to heal from that. You're gonna be hurt. So again, take your time, get to know other people, get to know other things, pick up hobbies. Just definitely don't rush it right into something else. So.
Right.
I'm gonna say I agree with y'all. Do the self work. You know what I mean? Do as much as you can to make yourself an eligible candidate to be in the dating field. Fitness, finance, game, social status. Like, get yourself to a place where if you a woman, you would look at yourself and be like, that's an attractive candidate. Pause on that. But
no diddy.
when you do get into the game and you're encountering some delusional women, you got to set boundaries. You cannot be finessed. You cannot be a wallet and a bank account and something to be taken advantage of. So you have to know the game. I recommend being a volume shooter. I recommend getting out there and shooting as many shots as possible to get some experience, some real life experience. It's something when somebody can tell you in a podcast, this is what you do. But until you're in the game, it's different. Until you get past the ball in the corner and it's 3 seconds left, you don't know what that feels like. So get out there in the game and make something happen. It's not foolproof. It doesn't mean that you're going to get what you want, but it's something that'll put you in the best position possible. So that's it for that topic.